All right, and it looks like we are live. So welcome everybody to another Finance Indaba Network webinar. Very pleased to have you all with us here today. And if you could go ahead and let us know in the chat your organization and role, please. Can see lots of people joining us. Welcome, Devrani. Good to see you here again. Can see we've got Camo joining us from Oracle. Got Terry. Vilma, thank you all for joining us here. Just waiting for a couple more people to let us know their roles and organization. Lets us know that we are live and you can hear us okay. And even better news, we've got Steve Cox here. That's fantastic. There we go. Thanks, Georgie. That confirms that you can see the message pinned at the top there. So welcome, everybody. Very pleased to have you all here for another edition of the Finance Indaba Network webinar series. You're all in for a treat this morning. We've got an incredible thought leader and speaker, Steve Cox, who's going to be sharing some of his insights and some of his views. Steve made some incredible predictions, and a lot of them have come to light. We'll also be sharing that ebook with you at a later stage in our session here today, so keep an eye out for that. And most importantly, I just want to give a big shout out and a big thanks to Oracle. You know, Oracle's been a long-standing partner of the CFO community for a number of years. And to prove that, you can see here's a photo taken from October 2013, right at the inception of CFO South Africa. We can see the gent in the middle there is Anise Meyert, who is the CFO of Oracle. So it just goes to show how long this relationship has been going on for, and definitely a big backer of the CFO community and a great partner that we've had over a number of years. Now, this morning we are going to be talking about digitization journeys. And you'll notice that Steve will be sharing some of his views and thoughts about some of the predictions that he had made previously, some of the things that he sees in the not too distant future as well. And to give you a little bit of background information on Steve, he's the go-to-market lead strategist for Oracle ERP and EPM product marketing. He's been with Oracle since 1997, holding various different roles there. And he also holds a master's degree in business administration with the University of Bath. So without further ado, Steve, I'm going to ask you to turn your camera on, come on and do a quick introduction. And then what do you say we have a fun and interactive session here this morning?
I hope so. The big thing for me, and I'm one of the luckiest guys in Oracle. And by the way, you did say I started in 1997. So I just want to clarify. I joined Oracle straight from kindergarten.
We can all see that, Steve.
Yeah, so I say I'm one of the luckiest guys in Oracle, having had this career that's plus 20 years in an organization that's always been at the front of technology. I've done quite a few different jobs. I started in Oracle as an implementer. I started implementing ERP. Then moved across to CX, customer experience, and I returned to marketing because Oracle hired me for my marketing skills about 10, 15 years ago. And now my focus is entirely on working with customers. So you can see my job title is customer marketing. Okay, I focus on making our customers successful because that is the most important you can possibly have. And I can tell you now, it's a fun job all year. But even in my previous roles, I speak to thousands of customers. So what I'm going to walk you through here is the lessons I've learned from talking to CFOs, CIOs, CFOs, and CEOs. Right, so everybody in the C-suite, and when you have a job that exposes you to lots of different things, you get the chance now to reflect back what you're hearing and how Oracle can help. So let's start the presentation and go through it. Now, whilst I'm speaking, John is going to launch a poll because we'd like to get some insights from you. And the most important thing about this presentation, though I'm sure you're going to love listening to my dulcet British accent, is really to get some insights from you on what is happening. So We'll launch that poll, can we, John? Okay, so that the poll's in action.
The poll should be up there over the chat. You should see that displayed over the chat. So go ahead and click on one of those radio buttons. We'll leave it up for some time and then we'll display the results for everyone to have a look at.
Sounds good. So these are the insights on South Africa pre-COVID. They come from an organization called Hootsuite, which specialize in social media. But they gather all of this data from various sources around the world. So interesting enough, and I use this data quite a lot in my presentations. You'd expect an Oracle guy to use data a lot. But there are some insights here that I haven't seen before. South Africa is one of the youngest countries in the world. You are truly a country of the millennials. An average age of 27.6 years. 62% of the population have access to the internet, which is pretty good. It's not as good as some countries and much better than others. I found this interesting, that the average South African spends 9 hours and 22 minutes every day on the internet. You have to remember there's a lot of things we do on the internet because now most of us work on the internet. But what is interesting, and I will say 9 hours and 22 minutes, you're about 14 minutes behind the Brazilians who use the internet 9 hours and 36 minutes a day. But I've never seen this before. In South Africa, 3 hours and 33 minutes are spent on the internet watching TV. That's phenomenal. That is a fundamental difference from every other country's data. And it's interesting to see how that will progress as we enter the 5G era. Now, some of the things on here are clearly going to change during COVID. And pre-COVID, 56% of South Africans bought something online in the past month. Now, you could argue that's associated with fairly low penetration of credit cards and a pretty high adoption of mobile money. But I think what we've seen from the crisis is online purchasing is almost dominant now, as traditional retail outlets really have become, for some, almost unreachable. We've all switched to buying online. So I would imagine when we look at this again in January 2021, that 56% is probably going to be more like 80%, 90%, perhaps even higher. Now, what is interesting, and I did pick up this 3 hours, 33 minutes watching TV, 70% of South Africans are concerned about what they watch, whether it's fake or real. And almost 70% of you are concerned about how companies use their data. So we would expect all of this to have evolved over the past 6 months. It is true that COVID-19, this tragedy that we're all experiencing at the moment, is fundamentally changing everything. So the good news is, even though it's changed everything, South Africa remains a country of great potential. We've always known this, and sometimes, but we haven't really connected that great potential with South Africa's innate abilities around education and its ability to influence world events. I mean, this is interesting. This is fairly recent. It's only a year old. This is an MIT researcher of great repute identifying Africa as the place where AI research has the biggest future. And ironically, I'm going to come to the results of the poll now. 76% of you said that you accelerated your transformation. And a further 16%, so that's 92%. So you can see I'm in finance because I can add up. 92% say you're either accelerating or you're staying the course. Now, actually, I will share with you, when we did this in the US just 2 weeks ago, the same poll, 71% of the CFOs said they were accelerating their transformation, and a further 9% said they were staying the course. So actually 19%, sorry. So 90% in the US staying their course, or accelerating. In South Africa, 92%, which is phenomenal. Everyone is changing. And why are we changing? Well, let's have a look at what's going on. The interesting thing, there is not a single industry that has been insulated from the fundamental change forced on us by this terrible tragedy. Not education, not healthcare, not insurance, not banking. No one has been insulated. And because of this, we are seeing a lot of industries now looking at new business models. Let me give you a great example of a new business model. There is a company in the UK that make a distinctive bike. And as you look behind you, you can see that cycling is an interest of mine. Brompton, one of the first companies that made a folding bike. These bikes that you sometimes see commuters fold up, put in the boot of the car or in the luggage rack of the train as you go into work. They are going to offer this year a bicycle as a service. You won't buy a bike, you'll rent it. This is fundamentally different. And we've seen insurance companies offering insurance as a service. Now, we've seen insurance before offered on credit, but now you can rent your insurance. Now, to do that, you not only have to change the way you work, the processes, but you need the technology to support it. So as I said, no industry has been insulated. We've seen high impact in certain industries, public sector, healthcare. We're all aware of what healthcare is going through. Retail, and there's not a day goes past where unfortunately we don't hear some news from the retail sector about the struggles. Higher education and travel, of course. You know, we've learned a lot. You know, if you look at the lessons we've learned, for instance, that remote working for many of us is not only possible, in some cases, it's been more efficient. We've actually been more productive when the majority of workers have been work from home. Now, the same thing we've learned, the other side of this is we actually like going in to the workplace. We miss the social interaction with our employees. We miss those conversations that lead to innovations in our business. You know, the conversations over coffee, over tea, that sometimes reveal a deeper secret that we weren't even aware of. We've learned that remote learning works, both for employees and for employers, and within our school systems. But we've equally learned that our children and students need the social interaction that you only get in an academic environment. Now, there are a small group of subsectors that are seeing a positive impact, primarily online. If you look at the asset and network-backed sectors, and the telecoms industry will recognize this straight away, they've moved from being, you know, the internet was something nice to have, and there's always been a debate about it's an essential service. But now the internet is absolutely critical. It is an essential service, almost like all of our other utilities, like gas, like electricity, like water. And perhaps no one has seen more immediate impact than our manufacturing industries, where whole supply chains have been completely disrupted as industries have struggled. We've looked at now multi-sourcing, so you've got more than one supplier for critical components, moving production back to South Africa from overseas, looking in an entirely different way at supply chain, which has been fashionable to talk about demand-driven supply chains. Well, now we've got to have supply chains that are not only demand-driven, but supply-driven. We actually need to respond to changes in our supplier network that forced upon us by a crisis. So what's top of mind right now? Now, this is the kind of thing that we've pulled from our conversations, that our customers are talking to us about. So our sales reps are telling us this is what customers are talking about. People like me who talk to CFOs every day about what's on their mind. But also, when we have webinars, in the Q&A. So the Q&A part of any webinar for me is where I do the most learning. So what are our customers talking to us about? Well, what does IT look like after the crisis? What does the supply chain look like? How can we respond to changes? When everybody's working at home, how do we manage data security? Because if you look at organizations, organizations are concerned about physical security, who gets into the premises. Now we're all working from home, it's that physical security, though it's still got to be maintained because people still are going into the office in some cases, but also data security. And as we emerge from the crisis, how do we manage biosecurity? So that's not only checking who's coming in, that's also checking their health. I mean, we're going to see security officers routinely checking body temperatures of people coming in. Scenario modeling. How do we stop this happening again? Because up until now, too many organizations are using Excel to manage probabilities. What happens if my supply chain is disrupted? Well, I'll just put it into the Excel. Now, the problem is you end up with thousands of Excel in an organization. You can't do it effectively. And you want to model all the scenarios you can in every which way, and you want to do it on the fly. What happens if a major customer is affected and isn't going to buy from you? Who's the most profitable customer? Where's the most profitable location? Where do I experience the biggest costs in my product portfolio? I want real-time insights. I want to know what is happening right now, moment by moment in my business. How can I introduce in my organization, without changing the culture, an innovation mindset? Now, those of you in manufacturing will probably smile at this moment and say, you know what, we've had continuous improvement and continuous innovation in our production organization for years. But what we're talking about now is making sure that embracing of continuous innovation is in every part of the industry, every part of the organization, in accounting, in HR, and so on. Remote working, we've accepted that's normal. Everyone wants to talk about it. What impact has that had, and how can we manage it? And above all, creating a culture that supports everything that's going on, so that the organization and the leaders of the organization talk about the values, over communicate, support change, help people understand that the organization that they're employed by is not just their employer, but more than that. So I think we've talked about this. I want to talk to you about something about the future. So could we show that video, John?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm just going to ask you to mute your line, Stephen. I'll do the same while we stream the video.
Embedding artificial intelligence, machine learning, and smart chatbots into your financial solution does not change the fundamental science of finance. But it does change the fundamental art of finance. Time is given back. Business gets done better. Risk is removed, and more decisions are made with confidence. How many new strategic opportunities will you unearth by leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning across all enterprise data to inform on insights that would otherwise remain buried? What would you do with the time gained back from automating your common end-to-end finance processes like source to pay and record to report? Routine tasks give way to automation and precision, freeing time and minds to explore more strategic goals. The anxiety from managing global compliance laws and the worry from security threats invading your systems of record fade into proactive insights from your systems of intelligence, working in unison to protect your company's reputation. Now, technology adapts to people. Join the growing number of organizations that have discovered the art of future-ready finance with Oracle.
So we're back. Can I have some slides again, John?
Sure thing. Here they come.
So, I kind of misrepresented that video. I said that it's the future. But let me share with you. We actually started putting that video together in 2018. So it's the past. Okay, it's we published it January 2019. So everything you saw in that video, apart from that ability to manipulate data in thin air, is available now. We could start in your organization in the next couple of days giving you that kind of environment. And we have South African customers already on that journey with us. Now think about what I showed, because it's kind of cool. All of those, dashboards are not uncommon in any business. But the cool thing was everybody in that organization, didn't matter what role they had access to the data they need when they need it. So not only did they benefit from hyper-efficient processes, that the data they needed to do their job was there when they need it. And in some cases, we have tools that actually present data to you before you know you need it. It makes recommendations to you. That's what the future is about. I mean, the big benefits there, think about what that would be in your organization if everybody, every employee had access to the right data. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody gets all the data. That wouldn't be right. But to do your job, if you suddenly walk in and you pick up your phone and it says to you that you need to take action on something or suggest to you, that's the kind of environment. And if you think about the benefits we're talking about, the major benefit is time. Time to deliver insights to the business. Time to figure out what's happening. Time to anticipate the problems you might have. Time to find new opportunities, to adopt new business models. That's what we all need, right? So the good news is lots of organizations are doing it. And we're just going to talk about one emerging technology, but if you've had the chance to look at my book, it's not just about one technology, it's about this group of 9 technologies. McKinsey say 77% of general finance activities can be automated. I think the total should be closer to 90%. And if they can be automated, then in my view, they should be. Organizations where they've adopted AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning, in their supply chain, 61% of them have seen decreased costs. Who doesn't want to reduce costs? So let's talk about digital transformation, because it's a bit of a buzzword. Everyone loves digital transformation. This is a model of digital transformation taken from a company called UExec. Nothing to do with Oracle. They do great PowerPoint templates. And when I saw this, I thought, that's great. This is what digital transformation kind of looks like. So you have a strategy. You might have a vision document that says company name with a year. It's usually something 2025 or 2030. And you've worked out where you are now, future state, where you want to be, roadmap, how you're going to get there, what you're going to implement, what technologies you're going to do, and then you're going to monitor it. And you have a change management model, and you've figured out your metrics, your governance, and you've got program and project management. What we have seen during the crisis is this model has been stood entirely on its head. Businesses, in some ways, have fundamentally transformed functions. So now replacing strategy has been business continuity planning, which of course is a form of strategy. We know where we are pre-COVID. We've transformed some of our activities. We've had to, and think about what we've had to do within education and in banking, where everyone's working from home and everyone needs access to their accounts. Technology's job, our job, is to play catch up now. We can help you manage that transformation, to to support the things you've already transformed with technology, and also help you transform that part of the business which hasn't been transformed. We deploy and redesign, and now it's about continuous observation. You notice I've actually said, look, this is not about change management so much. This is about change leadership, that form of leadership which comes from over communicating, setting expectations, providing vision. In a new world, we're going to need new KPIs, new measurements. And instead of just the simple program and project management, we need parallel project management, because you're going to be doing a lot of things at once. So this is what I think is beginning to emerge. Now, I don't argue that this is always going to be the case, but this is simply what we're seeing at the moment. So to manage all of that, the sad thing is, old ERP that was sometimes designed prior to Y2K, that people who are not millennials will remember Y2K, can't code. It has a 5-year adoption cycle. Now, let me be very, very clear. The old style of ERP, the vendors issued updates, significant updates with great technology every year. But the problem was, because it was yearly, and there was a gap between what we had and what we needed, customers tended to customize. And customizations is a 1990s technique that cannot possibly address the problems of the 2020s. Customization does one thing really well. It solves a problem. But along with solving a problem, it creates many others. It locks you into a version, which is why many companies don't upgrade. Of course they take patches. Of course they do things in the back end to try and help their businesses. But many companies I speak to, when we've looked at their customizations, and I've spoken to customers with thousands of customizations, have come to the realization those customizations have not helped their business for years. And it's simply the wrong approach to solving a problem. Every upgrade, because of the customizations, has become disruptive. In fact, upgrades so often are complete re-implementations, upgrades of older ERP. There's a long requirements lag. You want to do something, and the vendor says, well, that's going to take us either a year to work with your partner to get that customization done, or it's going to be in a version that is 2 years out. That doesn't help you. And you have, worst of all, patch level driven security. Now, let me share with you my view on this. The majority of data breaches over the years have been because of the failure to patch. Now, that's not because patching is difficult. It's because patching is complex. When you look at on-premise ERP, there are lots of patches to be applied to different layers of the system, from the operating system to the database, to the middleware, to the applications, and sometimes even the hardware. Which is why companies say, well, we're going to patch Friday night, and the system will be unavailable until Monday morning. Which is why, on average, across the world, companies are 3 months behind with patching. Well, compare that to the cloud. You get a suite of what you need. Continuous innovation with easy quarterly adoption. Every 90 days, we deliver hundreds of new features to you. So those things that you want to do, you don't have to customize, because they'll be coming in our system. And if you can't wait, or we're not committing to deliver them in the next 90 days or next year, you can extend Oracle. And when you extend Oracle, and when we deliver the next update in 90 days or whenever it is, whatever you've done with your extension keeps going. Whatever integration you've created keeps going, doesn't break. You can move to the cloud without disruption. So think of disruptive technical update. In many cases, it is faster to move from on-premise software to the cloud than it is to move from one version of on-premise software to the next version. There's an immediate feedback loop. We provide communities so that you can upvote, new features that you need. You can do extensions and configurations. And the big thing here is you never have to worry about patching, creating a weakness in your security, because we deliver embassy grade security. So there's a fundamental difference. You need a new generation of technology. And what does it look like? Well, this is the sales pitch you'd expect from Oracle. It looks like this, so I won't go through every feature, but we're providing one experience for all. Human interfaces. You can use ERP on whatever device you have. And there's one experience for everybody in the business, giving them the data they need to do their job. New technologies are embedded. Over 30% of our ERP applications now have some element of machine learning. It's complete. It does what you need it to do. It provides you with resilience and growth. It's about supporting your business today and tomorrow. So this is flexible. It grows with you. It doesn't lock you into doing the same thing every day. So sales pitch over. Let's just show you a few of the products. I won't go through to this. Today, more than ever, we recognize the need to plan workforce changes, to fit a new environment, to model what-if scenarios, to understand the financial implications of what we do. I talked about supply chain disruptions earlier and the need to have a new definition of an agile supply chain, which isn't just about responding to client demand, but also responding to supplier constraints. You can manage multiple signals. You can dynamically segment your supplier base. You can capture business insights that you didn't have before. And you can do this, and I'm showing this on a laptop. You can do it on any device. We all talked about the need to adopt new business model. This is about delivering superior outcomes for your business. It's not just the technology. It's about delivering you one company experience. Everybody gets to experience the same thing. You can apply risk management if you're in a business where risk is inherent in its business models or in the new business model. It's really easy to adopt risk management. And most of all, it's important to focus on the people. It is very difficult, I believe, with any generation to confront them with technology that is inferior to what they use at home, to what they use on their mobile phone. And I struggle with this personally. Most of us use a keyboard. Depends which country you come from, but we call it the QWERTY keyboard. In France, they have the AZERTY keyboard. Now, it's not just an urban myth, but the keyboards we use were designed to slow down human beings. Because if you type too fast on a typewriter, the keys jammed. Our children are going to look at this and say, hey, when you spoke to a computer, how did you speak to them? And you're going to say to them, well, we didn't used to speak to them. I used to use a keyboard thing and I used to spell stuff out. Well, this is the way we'll interact with ERP in the future. You can see here, still a keyboard, but you can do this with things like Siri or with things like Alexa. You can talk to ERP and it responds and gives you sensible answers. It can drive recommendations to employees on purchasing. So when they say, I need this component, it can come back to them and say, well, this is what people of your profile choose. You can use this to drive period close. I mean, this is phenomenal. You can just say, hey, this doesn't look right. And it says, well, this is what I found. This is about changing decision-making within an organization. So it not only is faster, it's better. There's no delays. And as I said, think about this. If nothing else, think about people who are in the workforce, who are not used to computing today. Why should they have to learn to struggle through an application? Tap, 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 tap. And sometimes it's not so intuitive. When you can give them a digital assistant, a chatbot that they're familiar with, they can talk to, they can type in what they need. So we talked about some emerging technologies, and John has told you I've written 3 books for Oracle around technologies and how they'll affect common business processes. So we won't go through those. If you'd like a copy of those books, we'll send you the link. Excuse me. But we think there'll be 5 major impacts of emerging technology work, particularly in finance. It'll help you improve your decisions. I talked about making decisions better and faster, simplify processes, to automate common tasks, to get rid of the mundane functions that prevent us adding value to the business, to manage risk better, and to optimize assets. This is a very, very common business process. It is the one benchmark that I have conversations with CFOs on. And I think what we've got is time to do another poll whilst we're here, which I think John may have launched. So whilst we're on, John, if you could launch another poll.
Sure, here it comes.
Okay. So let's have a look at processes. Okay, so interesting. Organizations' investment in digitization have to be budgeted for. So we want to know, does your plan to invest? What's the time frame we're going to use? So I warn you now, we've got one more poll to do. So here's the thing. This is period close. You notice at the top is the process itself, and I'll try and put a cursor over there. I hope you can see. Record, reconcile, post entries, and report. And 10% of the time is spent analyzing, understanding, reporting, and decide. That looks pretty cool at the top. But the reality is, not just for period close, but for almost every process in the business, it's way more complex. These gray lines, they represent data flows, information moving across the organization. I did use the word flow, but of course it doesn't flow, does it? This isn't flow, this is trickle. And in some places, it's not going anywhere. When I talk to CFOs and I say, well, what's going on in period close? Why is it that the best performing companies in the world are closing their books in 4.8 days on average? Well, they say there's 2 primary activities. Forget putting the report together. There's 2 activities we do. We chase for information and we wait for information. Because you get the information back and then you chase for a bit more because the information you get back doesn't give you all the answers. That's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable in January 2020, and it's certainly not sustainable now. 4.8 days does not sound right. And the trouble is, as I said, every process is like this. Compare that to the image you saw in the video. So how are we doing? Let's have a look at these budgets, because everyone is beginning to recognize that processes aren't what they should be. Technology that we need isn't where it needs to be.
See, there's still some responses coming in there. Shall we give them, what do you say, Steve, another 15 seconds or so?
Yeah, sure. This is interesting because most of you are seeing this as something you need to do something with almost, look, just before January and February, 50%. Further 20% almost there in the next 6 to 12 months. Wow, John, that's pretty interesting, because this mirrors almost the thing that we heard here in our first poll, right?
Mm.
Wow. So let me show you how I think the process could be. I'll stick my neck out. This is how the process could be. Process. So you can tell that I've been working in the US for a while. This is how the process could be. Much simpler, much cleaner. Everybody has the data they need. Right? Close their subledgers. We have a pro forma close, so we shake out any problems. We reconcile the accounts. We close our ledgers, we consolidate, we create the reports, and then we share them and update our forecasts. I asked, going back to the 4.8 days, I asked one of our CFOs, not within Oracle, one of our CFO customers. I said, look, in period close, how many people are involved when it's this 4.8 days? And the answer came back, oh, everybody. Everybody in accounting is involved in period close. It does not seem right to me that 4.8 days is sustainable. I will share with you that Oracle uses a process very similar to this. It's adopted for us, as every process that you see is. We actually closed our books faster during the crisis with all of our finance functions working from home in our shared service centers around the world. We closed our books 3 days faster. So that's the difference. Technology that's always up to date is, so we're not talking about new technology. The fundamental difference between this and everything that's gone before, and this is what the cloud has enabled us to do, is what we use is always up to date. What our customer use is always up to date. So this is a really simple view of a process. All the data is available when we need it. But I said to you, and John hinted at this, that I make predictions. So the latest book is called Modern Best Practice Predicted, and you'll have seen in some of the promotional material there are links to it. So we have it available as a PDF, also as an audiobook that you can listen to at home on the commute. This is where I believe period close is going. 3 steps to a process. You can see highly automated. I would argue that something like 80% of this is now automated. The 20% bit, that's that middle bit. The most important job that human beings do are manage acceptance and review, provide insight, do things that only humans can do, augmented by what the technology delivers. So in this case, the system is saying, this looks like an anomaly. And you respond, these are the actions I propose to take. And the system says to you, well, if you take that action, these are the financial implications. And the next time that anomaly happens, that you just treat as an exception, it says to you, the last time you had this, you did this. Do you want to do the same again? And let's imagine that you make the decision to do it again. Now, I'll be very, very clear. What it's doing as it's coming back to you is working, looking at your business rules and only coming back to you with suggestions based on your business rules. But you say, actually, yeah, we're going to do the same again. So it asks you another question before you commit and says, is this an exception? Do you want me to automate this? So you see now, you begin to eliminate the things that go wrong. But this is the most important thing humans do. They're using their insight, their experience, something that technology can't do. So this is where we think period close is going in the next 2-3 years. So that was an insight. So I think we've got one more poll, and everyone wants to get there. So we'll do one more poll now before we go on. Can we do that, John?
Yeah, sure, we can. So our second poll was around the finance processing. So should we have a look at that now? How much time we spend on finance processing?
So let me share with you why this is so important. The AQPC, the people who gave us that 4.8 days number, published an article a couple of years back now and said 50% of the average finance function is spent transaction processing, moving information around the company. What do you think it should be? 50%. If you were in manufacturing and your VP of manufacturing came to you and said, 50% of the stuff I do goes to scrap, would you say that was acceptable? If you were managing, I don't know, let's imagine you're managing an urban transit organization, and your VP of operations, your COO, came to you and said, hey, 50% of the journeys we make, we don't have any passengers. You wouldn't say it was acceptable. So why is it acceptable in accounting that 50% of our time is spent transaction processing. I think there's something wrong there. I don't say this is a bad thing. I just think that it's about time within finance. We looked at what we've learned in lean manufacturing and in other areas to improve our finance processes, to free up our resources, to let human beings do what they can do best. Interesting, John. I don't know. Wow. 17% of you are very aggressive. You think it should be less than 10%. But you know, the majority here, everyone thinks it should be less than 50%, which is good. I know that wasn't an option, but if I look at this, the majority say, look, it should be 10 to 20%. So for those of you who are CFOs, one of the observations I'd like you to put in the chat is, if your entire finance function could achieve just 20% of its time transaction processing instead of 50%, and by the way, for the mathematicians out there, that is not a 30% improvement. That's 150% because you've taken something from 50 to 20. It's a massive improvement. What would you do with all that extra time? So I'd love to hear about that in the chat. So this is one of the predictions we make in our book. We don't only limit our predictions to finance. We talk about customer experience. We talk about supply chain. We talk about HR. So I think we've got just a couple more slides. Now, the good thing about this is, as I said to you, many South African customers of Oracle's are already on the journey that we've talked about today. And worldwide, thousands of customers are embracing Oracle as we search for a new frame, as we search for a new rhythm, both in life and work, to free up that time, to unleash the talent we employ. But it's not only our customers. And as I said, you know, I'm measured on customer success. It's influencers and analysts like Gartner who recognize what Oracle is doing. And across the piece, these are just 4 places where we have a leader position: financial suites, financial close, HR, HCM, financial planning and analysis, ERP for product-centric customers, and manufacturing execution. You know, we could fill this slide with small icons like this. But this is how others are recognizing, not just our customers. As I say, I'm measured on customer success, but third parties, analysts such as Gartner. So now we're going to show you another video from one of our customers. And for me, this is an inspiring video. So John.
Sure, let's cue it up. Here we go.
My hope for our students is that they go out and have a fulfilling life where they're making a difference in the world.
I think it's incredibly short-sighted to try to compete in tomorrow's economy with yesterday's technology. It's imperative that we get our cost function under control and that we become more effective in retaining, graduating, educating, helping students find jobs.
The biggest issue that we had was the system that we were using was not created for our work world today. Nothing was intuitive, and therefore we had too many fields that had to be entered, which led to error and repetitiveness. We were running over 10 different payroll cycles. We reduced those payroll cycles now to 2.
I think for me as an information security officer, I always embrace the cloud when it's done properly. With Oracle, it was clear they were layering security throughout the entire environment.
We're becoming more nimble, more responsive. We are seeing an improvement of about 66% in process time. We have the capacity to administer and manage twice the load of research scholarships, externally funded grants. We had a $37 million increase in our online education revenue just this one year.
We need to be able to be good stewards to both our parents, alumni, our students, and be able to show we're doing the right things by them.
You know, I find that inspiring, not because of what they said about our technology, which is cool. And I love, you know, hearing good things about your technology is always good if you're an employee of Oracle. But let me share with you, the reason I find that inspiring is because they're doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it to fulfill a mission. And that's why we all do things, no matter what organization we're with, no matter what side of commerce we are, whether we're in public sector, whether we're in private sector. We do things to fulfill a mission. We do things to really make a difference. And that was what Baylor were doing with Oracle. And that's why I love it. As I say, it's nice to hear great things about our technology. It's even better to hear how it's helping Baylor fulfill their mission. So now I think, John, you are I'm gonna hand it back to John, and we're gonna go for some Q&A.
Yeah, that's it. So if you've got any questions for Steve, let us know in the chat. And in the build-up to our webinar, we asked a pre-registration question, and we've had some questions come there as well. But Steve, just one quick question from my side. So we've seen a lot of the kind of negative implications of where we're at the moment. So question for you is, do you think there's still hope? And based on some of your predictions of the future, how big a role do you see technology in kind of alleviating some of these challenges that we're going through and playing a big role in the recovery?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's hope. It's the one thing we need is to view this. Look, I cannot promise you that there'll be this happening or that happening within a certain time frame. All I can say is that quite clearly, our experience tells us, even if we look back 100 years ago to the Spanish flu of 1918, we came out of that. Things will get better. Technology has a role to play. It's the thing that supports the 5 pillars of the organization. And I've always talked about the 5 pillars, and technology is actually one of those, but let's put that one to one side. But the other 4 pillars, that's the ideas on which your organization is founded. Every organization, no matter where you are, is founded on a set of ideas, a set of principles, if you like. It's the people, because people want to use the best tools. Everybody does. You go into the worst garage in the world, and you see the most expensive tools on the wall, or you see tools that have been created by a craftsman to do a job. It's the technologies, it's the processes. So I've talked enough about processes, so I'm not going to talk about them, but you need a new set of processes. And the good news is we publish ours, so we make it easy. And lastly, it's the data. This thing that I've heard people talk about, well, it's the new oil. No, it's not, because there's no such thing as peak data. Our appetite for data, for information in its rawest form, is increasing as we speak. But these are the things that make up every organization. When you think of the role technology has to play as one of those 5 pillars, it's going to help organizations realize either their new mission because of the crisis, or a different version of their current mission. As we search for a new frame, a new rhythm to life, a new rhythm of work, then technology will be there to help people. So, a short answer to your question, absolutely, there is more hope than you can believe.
Good. That's good. Good to hear. If I'm just to summarize a couple of the questions that have come in. So we've had questions from Stephanus Lowe, Caroline Henry, and Ntando, as well as Gladys. And their questions were a lot around the technology, they being in very sort of early stages of their digitization journey. What would you propose as a kind of a next step, or some advice on their journey?
I think that the first thing to recognize with digitization is that it's not something that you do piecemeal. Okay, it's a world of parallel projects. So the first thing is to recognize that if you're going to digitize your business, is to figure out which projects you're going to do, which order you're going to do them, and how they work together, because there will always be a set of dependencies. One of the things that I think went wrong 10 years ago, when you first started here, and sometimes as long as 15, 20 years ago, about people doing digital transformation, is we're going to get customer experience right. And you absolutely have to get that right, but you cannot forget the bit of the customer experience that does the billing.
Sure.
The bit of the customer experience that delivers stuff to the customer, whether it's a service or a tangible item. You can't forget that piece of the customer experience that's all about managing what they spend with you and their credit score. So my view is you have to take a very holistic view. Now, the great thing is our partners and Oracle have lots of experience here. So we're dealing with thousands of companies that already started their transformation, and there are lots of different places to start. The companies that start on the ERP journey, what we see is a trend to start first with enterprise performance management, simply because it gets you control of certain aspects of your business and has a very, very fast early return on investment. And that's a very common trend for organizations to say, I'm going to start on my ERP journey by investing in enterprise performance management, because it can actually derive benefits from your existing framework. But the big thing is to say holistic and to recognize that time is against you. So you do power projects, but you have to manage. There can be almost zero disruption to doing this, as long as you do the groundwork first.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. And then just to latch on onto the ERP component of that, I see Tabiso Pelisani asked a question there, which is, do you assist public entities to migrate from current ERP to your platform whilst maintaining data integrity?
Absolutely. So there's a great story. I am old enough to remember, actually I'm old enough to remember my parents singing a song called The Lambeth Walk. Okay, so that is a song from...
Are you going to sing it for us, Steve?
No. It's a song from the 1930s. But Lambeth City Council, we have just published their story on oracle.com. So you go and have a look at Lambeth City Council, and we're doing this for city councils, for public sector agencies, for organizations that are a mix of both, for federal organizations, and ironically, we're actually working with the British government, because they use a set of processes that are based on the things that we've published to manage their shared service activities. So absolutely, in answer to the question, you don't have to be in the private sector, any sector.
Perfect. I see that Khape Khabanyane has also asked a question around some security elements. So I don't know if you have an answer to that, Steve, or if we should redirect that to someone within Oracle. He's saying,
I can't actually see the question.
It says, how do we address the security elements between the ERP and platforms like Syria and Alexa? And again, similar to Tabiso's question, how do we ensure customer data is secured?
Okay, well, I'll go back to we talked about embassy grade security. So let's talk about data in the way we manage data. So firstly, the only person who can see your data is you. Your data is encrypted both at rest and in flight. So the only person who can get access to your data is you, because you're the only people that have a key. If I talk about the security stack, the security starts at the physical level and the biosecurity level, but right the way through the Oracle stack. So when we say the Oracle stack, what I mean is the hardware. It's made by Oracle. The operating system, Oracle. The database, you'd expect that to be Oracle, right? Right the way through to the applications and the way you use it, we manage that. It's always encrypted. So you never have to worry about security again.
Okay. Perfect. I see we are fast approaching our time here. We're right at the top of the hour. And I see, Vilma, you asked a question around job losses. Just from my experience in the past, to answer that pretty quickly, is I find that as many jobs that are lost during the process, as many are created through upskilling and redeploying. So that would be the kind of short answer to that. Steve, I just want to take an opportunity to thank you so much for sharing your insights. I really found it fascinating, and it's great to see how many of your predictions actually came true as well. So thank you very much for being here today. Of course, thank you to Oracle for being our continuing long-standing partner of the CFO community. And just to give everybody a heads up of some of our other webinars that are taking place fairly soon as well. So you'll see that I think it's next week. Let's look at the date. Yeah, next week on the 27th of August, we've got Nedbank CIB who will be presenting on supply chain finance to the rescue. So be sure to register for that one. And then I'm going to go ahead and type a URL in the chat now. It's the same one you see on the screen, where you can register for all of our upcoming webinars. And we've been absolutely inundated with questions around the finance Indaba. And we're very excited to share some more news about that over the next couple of weeks. We'll keep you updated with exactly what's happening with the finance Indaba, and lots of exciting stuff in store. So thank you all for being here today. For those of us who asked the questions in the pre-registration, we will be responding to all of you individually, and Vilma will also reach out to you directly as well. So thank you all for being here. Been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Finance Indaba Network webinar. Have a great end to the week, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.